Good morning, gang. Automotive Inc. here. So, we just ran the Da-I.K.E, the alleged world's toughest tow challenge, the other day with the gassers. And so today I have the wonderful privilege of taking a power stroke up and over Loveland Pass, towing a fairly light load of about 6,000 pounds roughly. Nothing major, 22 power stroke, 331 rear end, and whatnot. So reset it in Denver, and we'll talk about some fuel economy and stuff here in a little bit. But just kind of wanted to let you guys know that even though we're in a power stroke, so we have the exhaust brake and everything like that. Now we got the camera set up here. This is one of the most kind of unique, I call it a treacherous pass up here in Colorado. It's kind of like Granella Pass, whatnot. But very steep, lots of switchbacks. Truckers have to go this way if they're hauling hazmat. The way we're going into Silverthorne today, we'll go that way. But nonetheless, again, nothing major here, but just touching on some things we did the other day. So we're in a power stroke. We have the exhaust brake. And let me turn my head here over here. Let me so you can see this a little bit. It's pretty cool. Nonetheless, been up this 100 times in a semi back when I hauled fuel. Light load today, but I want to touch on a few things because after that the videos came up. Some of the videos were kicked off because of a certain group that owns a certain channel, the F Lane guys. They have a bigger company that umbrellas them. They took a bunch of my videos down or got them kicked off for a trademark infringement, even though they've never said that their name for the gauntlet was actually trademarked in any of their videos. They never advised that. They don't have that on any of their listings. YouTube just granted that and took them down. But nonetheless, a lot of people came out on some of the other videos that were still able to come up, and they said, well, nobody tows and cruise, and nobody does this, and nobody does that. And, well, you do what you do, so you are right. Not everybody does what the manufacturers suggest, but that's okay. And so just some feedback here. So driving the power stroke for the last few days, matter of fact, towing nothing over 11,000 with it. Without using cruise control, the transmission still needs input. So a light brake will not really engage a lower gear for the exhaust brake to engage the best. So in the grand scheme of things, you really kind of have to dig in. So when people are saying, well, you did a brake application in the Ford the other day with the gasser and the Chevy. Well, yeah, to engage the transmission to grab you at another gear. If I'm not using cruise control, same thing in the power stroke like it did in the gas. It will still coast 8 to 10 mile an hour over, and then it's up to you then to input what you want it to do. It will experience some of that on this downhill descent because it is very steep, and so that's just one of those things that it boggles me. Now when I do use cruise with this, it'll let me get about 4 or 5 depending on the load, and then it does engage the exhaust brake, and then it does very well. Which again, I've said that all along. If you're going to use the cruise control for both of them, both do actually really well based on how they're set up. Even though one has an extra advantage of the exhaust brake. It's really kind of not a big deal. Now that being said, a few weeks ago we also had a 23 L5P Gen 1 Duramax, and interesting enough, this one was a 331, the power stroke, cruising around town doing pickups and stuff like that in the city. I was getting about 12 miles a gallon, and in the Duramax I was actually getting around 16 and a half. Now, unladen and just cruising, the power stroke is getting about 16 and a half cruising around in the city, which again, the two gassers that we have on the channel get about 15. So really not not a disparaging difference. The Duramax, however, in town was getting about 18. Didn't really have a chance to get on the highway per se, not towing most of the time. When I was on the highway, it was towing, so really not a big deal. Another thing I found interesting in the Power Stroke here is the transmission temps. We're going up a hill, it's 34 degrees up here. You know, turn the dealio here. And, you know, the transmission temps are still the same. So, I mean, yeah, they run hotter than the Chevy, but I mean, we're not really towing much anything. And, you know, we're running 210 at 34 degrees outside. And to me, it's kind of mesmerizing that it's still running that warm, but it is within spec. And that's how Ford kind of set it up to do it. So, but, you know, when people are like, oh, the gasker's working at way more hard. Well, not really, because the trans temps are staying the same. Engine temps are staying the same. So really no crazy advantage there. All right, so took this off the tripod so I could do a tire check real quick. Reached the summit, and we're going to get ready to go down. Elevation up here is 11,990. I'm going to walk over here and let you guys see a little bit of God's country up here. So I don't know if you can see it. That down there is I-70 westbound. So we climbed up this high pretty quick and, you know, effortlessly with the truck. But I remember when I was over the road trucking and I had my slip seat with me, and we had to come this way because the tunnel was shut down for whatever reason. And man, there is no shoulder for most of this road. It's just a cliff, and I remember him biting his nails, and the whole time it was just hilarious. People that don't drive these roads a lot, they get real uncomfortable, and rightfully so. So if you're a novice and you ever come up on this chunk of the road, definitely be careful and mind the speed limit. All right, so got this back in the little holder here. Now we're going down, and I've came over this in blizzards before. I was hauling fuel. Definitely not for the weak at heart, but you know, here's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna let the truck kind of do itself. I mean, the speed limit is only 30. I'm not gonna use cruise control at this low of speed. The truck's gonna engage the exhaust brake pretty well. So there's really nothing much to show you here. But I mean, all in all, if I was doing 30 in the gas pickup, it'd be about the same, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you can't get over 30, so you're going to keep it engaged in that third or fourth gear the whole time. So really nothing crazy to report there. So yeah, so we'll just see at the bottom. This is, you know, 4 or 5 miles, 6 miles, whatnot, I don't know. We're just going to cruise down, but it's pretty country, but you won't see much in the tripod here, so we'll just see when we get down there. So I thought I'd pick this up just real quick again before we get down. We still have a ways to go, but again, I'm still having to put input into the brake system to engage a lower gear to get the engine brake. I can hear the engine braking as it's doing its thing, but it's not like the Ram. The Ram is very similar to a semi. In tow haul mode, you let off the throttle and it automatically engages that exhaust brake and starts doing its job. The ones in this Power Stroke, I haven't towed with a Gen 2 L5P, but in the first Gen L5P, it did need some stern input to get it to engage a lower gear. Then it would engage the actual exhaust brake better. So I just find that interesting. Again, cruise control keeps it right where it's at because the engine knows that's where I want it to stay. But if you're just gonna not use cruise, because that's what some guys were telling me, that no, I would never tow in cruise, well then that is what it is. But then you'll be engaging the brakes more often to engage the gear and everything like that, which you could just set the cruise at say 50, and the truck and exhaust brake and transmission will do what it needs to do to really work the best. But yeah, so right now I'm picking up speed. It's still a little bit lower than the actual speed limit, because that's how I tow, but nonetheless, if I was doing the speed limit, we'd be picking up even more speed because it would be in a higher gear. So just kind of an interesting thing to note. Well, guys, we ended up getting down again. No sweat there. It was pretty low, speed. So I mean, the truck got pretty good fuel economy. It came in at 12.9, which again, I always think that a lot of these guys are like, well, I have a diesel and I get crazy good fuel economy towing, and I would just tell people, so okay, well, um, all these guys that tell me that they're getting 20 miles a gallon towing 30,000 pounds. Can I just ride with you and watch where you're collecting that data? Here, I'll wait. You can go ahead and message me right now. Go ahead. Because I always hear talk about it, but I don't ever see any action. And I'm gonna tell you that I had all the diesels out there, and by far some were better than others. And if you go all the way back to a 12 valve, and if you're doing 50 miles, an hour, 65 miles an hour, I think you can get pretty good fuel economy, but not towing. I don't believe that anybody's pulling any amount of weight. I mean, this was basically no weight behind this pickup, and that's all it got. I mean, come on. So, I'm not saying that that's not good for a truck, but I'm not for sure where at some point everybody has to be like, that is the biggest thing, other than, oh, well, I got more power. It's usually, well, I got fuel economy, and the fuel economy I'm getting is 3 times as much as a gasser, so it'll just, I'll equate that, and I'll pay off my motor in like 2 months because, the fuel economy. Well, that's just not true. And again, it's just another thing just to show you that depending on your needs, again, these gassers getting really good fuel economy is for what they are is pretty crazy. Yeah, so just thought you guys might enjoy that on a Wednesday morning. And we'll see you on the next one.